I believe that I should be joined now by Kerry Black. Hello, Kerry.
Hiya.
Good morning.
Morning.
Everybody, lovely Kerry Black. You may or may not know her. Kerry is on Twitter, and Kerry is the latest person to be, in my opinion, harassed by police for her tweets. Let's just have a little bit of background. I wanted Kerry to come on because it's outrageous what's happening to women on Twitter. Well, we just heard David's story about being booted off Twitter, but there's a whole other story that's taking place regarding women on Twitter. And that is, Kerry wrote a thread, and it was a very touching thread based on Kerry's experience of having been abused. You have an understanding, you're a survivor, and you wrote a really powerful thread last July about kind of like the coercion that we get in certain movements, gender ideology to do with paedophilia. And somebody took offense to that, and you ended up removing that thread. It no longer was available on Twitter, even though it's an absolutely brilliant thread. And I'm going to read.
I didn't remove the thread, actually. I removed one tweet.
Right, sorry, there you go. Well, it is a brilliant thread. I want to be able to reflect on some of it to give people an idea of where you're coming from. And so you actually talk about, you know, the sort of boy lovers in ancient Greece. You talk about the you literally talk about the historic situation regarding the abuse of children and how often there is coercion to be able to get those barriers to be able to drop. Pick it up for us.
So my whole thing is love and boundaries. That's what I tweet about. That's where I come from. And my point about childhood sexual abuse is that we need boundaries in place right at the start. And it was over the Wee Spa incident. That's what sparked the thread off. Right. And there were people on Twitter saying things like, avert your eyes. Yeah. Avert your eyes from the penis in the changing room.
Let's just inform everybody in case they don't know what the Wee Spa incident is.
So a sexual predator went into the women's changing room at a spa and swung his penis about in front of women and children. And there really were serious commentators on Twitter saying, avert your eyes from this penis in the women's changing rooms.
Yeah.
And I wrote that thread to call out those people and to say, this is grooming. It's grooming. If you're telling people just to kind of put up with people swinging their penis about, you're not standing up for trans rights. You're standing up for paedophiles. Absolutely. You're standing up for predators. You're standing up for flashers. You're standing up for perverts.
Absolutely.
And I wrote that thread to give really serious examples of what grooming looks like, of what paedophiles sound like, of what paedophile enablers sound like, in order to put people on notice that if you say those things, you're not a trans rights activist. You're a paedophile rights activist.
That's right.
That's why I wrote the thread.
Yeah, and it's a powerful thread, and I implore anybody to come search it out. Give them your Twitter handle so they can come check you.
It's at femloves.
And that's FEMMELOVES. So what happened regarding the police? Where are we at the moment?
I mean, it's mad. All right. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you.
Yes.
I feel like I'm in, like, you wouldn't write it in a novel.
Right.
Okay. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. I wrote a thread saying childhood sexual abuse and the people who say things that are grooming, that enable people who want to abuse children are bad. And now the police are coming to arrest me because I said paedophiles are bad.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems mental. A survivor of childhood sexual abuse says paedophiles are bad. Yeah. And the police are going to come and feel up my collar.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And
it seems mad.
And you've been accused of every phobic possible for that thread, haven't you?
Yeah. Apparently I'm transphobic, even though I don't mention trans people.
Right.
And I'm homophobic. And now there are gay men in that thread.
Yeah.
There are gay men in that thread. So Peter Tatchell, for example, who said that he knows people who were abused when they were 9 who weren't harmed by it. Yeah. And I call out that. Yes. I say that if you know somebody who was abused when they were 9 who say, no, I'm absolutely fine about it, it's all good, then it's because you haven't faced it, you haven't dealt with it.
Right.
And I call Peter Tatchell out, and he's a gay man. But I don't care if you're gay or straight. I'm going to call you out if you're saying things that enable paedophiles.
Yeah. I completely
That's what I'm gonna do.
I completely agree with you. I mean, completely agree with you. And of course, you did an incredibly powerful speech on Friday. Friday was a sort of a UK-wide day of get Stonewall out, of organisations, government bodies, and obviously we do know that the Stonewall Diversity Champions programme has been phenomenally powerful. And bit by bit, people are pulling back from it. Obviously, there was Stephen Nolan investigation, which was powerful, but you did an incredibly powerful speech on Friday. Tell us about it.
I'm gonna, I'm gonna say this. Back in the day, right? Back in the day, in the gay community, and in the old school community, we had a motto. There was a thing that gay men knew, and what gay men knew. Can I swear, by the way? Can I
Yeah,
say
go
something?
for it.
Good. Okay. So we used to say, you don't fuck with femmes.
Right.
Gay men know that you don't go after femmes. And I got told, come down the police station. Come down the police station voluntarily, or we're going to arrest you. To which I said in this speech, no, thank you. I don't want to come down the police station. I'm politely declining your invitation to come down to the police station.
Yeah.
You don't mess with who messes with femmes like?
Yeah.
What gay man messes with femmes? And this is part of the sadness I have about losing our spaces, because the LGBT community, there used to be the possibility that anywhere I went in the Western world, I could walk into a bar and know that there were people who knew the rules.
Right. And the rules
Know
are,
that
yeah,
that there was home, and we all fell out with each other. We all disagreed with each other. We all had arguments. I mean, there were some people who thought, well, I want to get my rights. I want to join the army. I want to have children. I want to get married. And then there was the other side of the community that thought, well, if you want to join the army, get married and have children, why are you even gay? So like there was the whole discussion, the whole conversation, but there were rules,
yeah,
and there were codes, and people knew that you didn't fuck with femmes.
yeah.
And those spaces have gone. If I walk into any bar in Ireland that's an LGBT space, everybody knows who I am, and I'm not welcome. I'm not welcome, because I think that lesbians don't like dick.
Right.
It's mad.
Well, it is. The attack on lesbians, I mean, is absolutely insane. I was on this morning on ITV for almost 10 years as a debater, one of their most regular debaters. And the last time I was on, they docked my pay. I've not been on since. It's 2 years now. And it's because I raised attention to what was going on at Pride, what was going on at Stonewall, and I talked about the cotton ceiling, and it's absolutely insane. And there's all this sanitization that's taking place, and the attack on lesbians has been huge and immense. The whole point about lesbians is you're same-sex attracted. You're not attracted to men who call themselves women, and neither should you be coerced or brutalized into accepting such a situation. It's absolutely insane. Luggerbugs, I understand it's not your subject area. Luggerbug says I'm confused. Let me give you a quick brief understanding. Luggerbugs, basically gender ideology has taken over everything. It is turning everything into being incredibly undemocratic. There's been an absolute attack on lesbians where they are being told that they should be sleeping with males who identify as women, which is, well, frankly, it's rape culture. And it's just completely unacceptable. And Kerry, who is extremely outspoken and passionate, and with a history of understanding child sexual abuse, which is really vital in this conversation. And so when Kerry wrote that original post in July last year, bear that in mind, in July last year, so that's over like a year and a half ago, and suddenly the police rock up now and want to interview her under caution, and if she doesn't turn up, they're going to arrest her. You have to wonder what is going on, and the police are being weaponized, aren't they, Kerry?
On the police, my conversations with the police, I went to the police when I got my courage, when I faced what happened to me and got my courage. I went to the police and reported what happened to me to the police, and I sat in a room with an officer who wrote everything down, and nobody was interviewed, and no charges have been brought over what happened to me.
So
and
your
when
story,
when I was faced with a wall of death threats and rape threats, when I was faced with a wall of people saying, I'm going to come to your house, they did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one phone call from that man,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here. I mean, we may or may not get to the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
I may or may not get a knock on my door this morning.
And that's terrible to have that hanging over you. That is horrendous. That's abusive in its own right. And so the take-home message that the police seem to be sending you is that raising attention to child abuse is worse than being abused.
Let me tell you this, Sonia. There is a policeman down the station. If they are planning to arrest me, there is a policeman down the station who is currently drawing the short straw. They are sitting there and they're going to have to come and get caught on my security cameras, arresting somebody for saying that child abuse is bad and you should like not put your hands on kids.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be that police person. I wouldn't want to be on my security cameras arresting anybody for that. No. I mean, who would want to do that?
Absolutely. You've got loads of support in the comments, as I knew you would have. Luggerbugs is no longer confused, completely understandable. And that's the important thing, is it sounds a bit like an almighty mess, doesn't it? This whole gender ideology thing, and how the police are coming after people for hate crimes, and it does sound a mess. But the whole point about shows like this is to penetrate that mess and distill it, and so people can see that it's actually really simple and really straightforward. It's only people who want to muddy the waters, who have been muddying the waters. Thank you. It's time now. Like this show, no fear to cover subjects properly. Absolutely. That's the whole point about it. Ray Cam wants to know, how has the gender movement gained so much power? Where does their funding come from? Well, that's the whole thing, is that it's a top-down process. They want everybody to believe that actually people like Kerry and I, who question the whole gender ideology, I'm not a bigot, I don't for one second believe that Kerry is, but we do question it because our spaces are being invaded and by predators. And I'm not saying that people with gender dysphoria are predators. I'm saying that people are seeing a gap to be able to leap in through. Predators are seeing that and they're using it against us, aren't they? Yes, absolutely, Crone. Kerry is a great lady. Thank you for speaking up. This is horrific, says Luggerbugs. Deefa says, that's terrible. Human Creative says, bless you, it feels like they've been mandated by powers above to ignore specific crimes. Yes, Shin says, good on you, girl, so brave. And Human Creative says, make sure your cameras are on 24/7. And Charlie says BNT should cover this case and the police need contacting. Sonia by BNT for their version. Well, absolutely. That's the whole point of bringing Kerry on this morning, because my concern was that she was going to be arrested before we could get her on. And I want as many people as possible to know what this lady is enduring. And Kerry is not the first woman under this kind of pressure. There is Marion Miller in Scotland under this pressure. Maria McLaughlin in London, who eventually got a conviction against a trans-identified male who attacked her, had to call her attacker she in court. I mean, this is just so abusive. Kerry,
Sonia, if that happened, I wouldn't do it. I'd go to prison before I did that.
I know this.
Do you know?
Yeah. Tell us what you really want people to know, Kerry.
What I really want people to know is that the process is the punishment. And I'm pretty tough, right? I'm pretty tough. But as a survivor of abuse, and I don't go into the details of what happened to me because I don't want to provide wank material to paedophiles. But as a survivor, to know that at any moment, what I am currently doing can be interrupted by somebody who can put me in cuffs, manhandle me into the back of a police car, and lock me in a room with a man for hours, is something to live with. And I'm tough, right? I've faced worse rooms than that. And the men in those rooms did worse things to me than ask me questions. And I've survived and I've recovered and I've returned home and I've made my life. Do you know, my house is a home and it's full of love. But to know that at any moment they can come and do that as a survivor, it hits differently. Even if I weren't a survivor, it would be a thing to live under. But as a survivor, to know those things, it's something to live with. And the process is the punishment. And that movement uses dirty tactics and dirty tricks to terrorize women.
Absolutely.
And that man, and it's up and down the country. And I'm putting them on notice. Do you know? They can come and arrest me, but my camera's on. Yeah. And if they do come, I'm sharing the footage. And I feel sorry for the police person who has to do that. Yeah. Imagine arresting somebody for saying paedophiles are bad. I feel sorry for Police Service of Northern Ireland because I'm coming after them with freedom of information requests.
Yeah.
I'm going to find